In 2007, 16 people in my childhood neighborhood killed themselves in 3 months. All of them left identical suicide notes, just one sentence written in shaky handwriting. I can't tell which memories are mine anymore. The local newspaper ran a story. Psychologists were consulted. The consensus was collective hysteria, maybe contaminated water causing hallucinations. The story disappeared from the news within weeks. Life moved on. Except it didn't. Not for the families, not for the survivors, and not for me, because 20 years later, I found my mother's medical records hidden in a box she'd kept locked until the day she died. Records that showed she'd been drinking treated water for 4 years. Water that was supposed to make her healthier, water that was actually poisoning her mind. And now, sitting in my apartment in Philadelphia at 3 in the morning, I'm starting to remember things that never happened to me. I remember a conversation I never had. I remember standing in a room I've never been in. I remember my mother's last thoughts before she died, even though I was 3,000 miles away when it happened. My name is Rafael Santos. I'm 48 years old. I'm an environmental engineer. I believe in science, in facts, in things I can measure and prove, but I can't explain what's happening to me. And the only place I'll find answers is back in Petrolina, back in the city I left 25 years ago and swore I'd never return to. This is what I discovered. Petrolina sits on the banks of the São Francisco River in the state of Pernambuco, in Brazil's northeast. It's not a small town anymore. 350,000 people live there now. But when I was growing up in the 80s and early 90s, it felt smaller, more intimate. Everyone knew everyone. The river was the heart of everything. We swam in it, fished in it, watched the sun set over it every evening. The city grew around agriculture. Grapes, mangoes, melons. The irrigation projects turned the Sertão into farmland. By the time I left in 1996 to study in the United States, Petrolina was booming. New neighborhoods were sprouting up everywhere. One of those neighborhoods was Vila Marcela. That's where I grew up, a planned community built in the late 70s for middle-class families. About 5,000 people lived there. It had its own schools, a small commercial area, a community center, and its own water treatment station. That detail matters. I didn't know it mattered then, but it matters more than anything. My mother, Maria Santos, raised me alone. My father left when I was 8, just disappeared one day. She worked as a secretary at a textile factory, made enough to keep us fed and clothed. She was proud, refused help from relatives. She wanted me to study, to leave Petrolina, to have opportunities she never had. I did exactly that. Got a scholarship to Penn State in 1996. Studied environmental engineering. Got my green card. Built a life in America. I visited Brazil twice in those years. Quick trips, a week here, a few days there. My mother always said she'd visit me in the States, but she never did. In 2008, she died. Heart failure, the death certificate said. She was only 62. I couldn't go to the funeral. My visa situation was complicated at the time. I was devastated, but I rationalized it. Heart disease runs in families. She'd been stressed. These things happen. Her sister, my tia Beatriz, handled everything, sold the house, put my mother's belongings in storage. I told her to throw most of it away. I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to forget. For 16 years, I forgot. In December 2024, tia Beatriz died. She was the last close family I had in Brazil. Her children, my cousins, contacted me. There were legal matters to resolve, documents to sign, and boxes. Dozens of boxes of my mother's things that tia Beatriz had kept all these years, even though I'd told her to get rid of them. I flew to Petrolina 2 days before Christmas. It was my first time back since 2008. The city had changed. Bigger, more modern. Shopping malls and apartment towers where there used to be empty lots. But Vila Marcela looked almost the same. The same houses, the same streets, just older, more faded. My cousins had moved the boxes to a storage unit. I spent a day going through them. Old clothes, photo albums, kitchen items. I was about to give up and just donate everything when I found a locked metal box at the bottom of one of the larger containers. The key was taped to the bottom. Inside were documents, medical records, dozens of them, receipts for treatments, lab results, consent forms, and a folder labeled Programa de Saúde Pública, Vila Marcela, 2003-2007. I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit and read every page. My mother had enrolled in a public health program in 2003. The program was run by the Municipal Health Department in partnership with a company called Biogen Solutions. The stated purpose was to test enhanced water treatment methods to improve cognitive health in aging populations. Participants would receive treated water delivered directly to their homes through a separate distribution system connected to Vila Marcela's dedicated treatment station. They'd undergo regular medical checkups, cognitive tests, blood work. In exchange, they'd receive free healthcare and a small monthly stipend. My mother had signed the consent forms in March 2003. The record showed she participated until October 2007. There were cognitive test results. In 2003, her scores were average for her age. By 2005, they'd improved significantly. Memory tests, problem-solving tasks, verbal fluency, all better. The doctor's notes were enthusiastic. Exceptional response to treatment. Patient shows marked improvement in recall and cognitive processing. But then in late 2006, the notes changed. Patient reports intrusive thoughts, experiencing memories that feel unfamiliar, difficulty distinguishing between recalled events and imagined scenarios. By mid-2007, the notes were alarming. Patient increasingly distressed, claims to remember events she did not experience, recommending psychiatric evaluation. The last entry was dated October 15, 2007. Patient withdrawn from program, recommended for ongoing psychiatric care. There was a list attached to one of the documents. 47 names. I recognized some of them. Neighbors. People I'd known as a child. Next to 16 of the names was a small symbol. A cross. Deceased. I pulled out my phone and searched for news articles from 2007. It took me 20 minutes to find it. A short article in the local newspaper, dated November 2007. Wave of suicides in Vila Marcela puzzles authorities. 16 people had taken their own lives between August and October 2007. The article quoted a psychologist suggesting collective stress, economic anxiety. It mentioned that many of the deceased had been participants in a recently concluded public health initiative, but stated there was no evidence of a connection. The program, the article said, had been terminated due to budget constraints. I sat there in that storage unit until it got dark. Then I drove to Vila Marcela. The neighborhood felt wrong the moment I entered it. I can't explain it better than that. It just felt wrong. The streets were too quiet. I parked near the house where I'd grown up. Someone else lived there now. The paint was different. The garden was gone. I walked through the neighborhood as the sun set. People were outside, sitting on porches, walking dogs. But no one made eye contact. When I tried to smile at an elderly woman watering plants, she looked away quickly and went inside. I stopped at a small pharmacy near the community center, the same pharmacy that had been there when I was a kid, though the name had changed. I bought water and looked around while the clerk rang me up. Behind the counter I could see into the back room where they filled prescriptions. There were dozens of bottles lined up. I'm not a doctor, but I recognized some of the names from my work: antipsychotics, anxiolytics, antidepressants, heavy medications, the kind you don't prescribe lightly. I asked the clerk casually if the pharmacy was always this busy. He shrugged, said Vila Marcela kept him employed. A lot of people needed medications, a lot of regular refills. I walked to the cemetery on the edge of the neighborhood. I'd been there for my grandmother's funeral when I was 12. It was bigger now. I found them in the newer section. 16 graves, all dated 2007, August through October. The graves were well maintained, fresh flowers on most of them. I recognized some of the names. Senora Rodriguez, who used to sell bread from her house. Senor Carvalho, who fixed bicycles. People I'd known, people who'd seemed normal, happy even. I stood there for a long time, reading the names, doing the math. 16 suicides in 3 months, all in a neighborhood of 5,000 people. That's not normal. That's not explainable by economic stress or collective hysteria. That's something else. I took photos of every headstone. Then I walked back to my rental car as night fell over Villa Marcella. That night, in my hotel room, I started having the first memory that wasn't mine. It came suddenly, while I was reading through more of my mother's medical documents. One moment I was looking at a lab report, the next moment I was somewhere else, not physically, but in my mind. I was in a doctor's office. I could see it perfectly. Cream-colored walls, a desk with a computer, diplomas on the wall. A man in a white coat, maybe 50 years old, balding glasses. He was speaking to me, except it wasn't me. It was my mother. I was seeing through her eyes, hearing through her ears, feeling what she felt. He was saying, "Senora Santos, the treatment is working exceptionally well. Your cognitive scores are among the best in the program. How are you feeling?" And I heard my mother's voice, but I felt it in my throat, like I was the one speaking. "I feel good, doctor. My memory is better. I can remember things from years ago so clearly now. It's like watching movies in my head." The doctor smiled. "That's exactly what we hoped for. Any side effects, headaches, sleep problems?" "No, nothing like that. Just sometimes I remember things and I'm not sure when they happened. Like, I'll remember a conversation with my son, but then I think, wait, did we actually have that conversation? Or am I mixing it up with something else?" The doctor's smile faded slightly. He typed something on his computer. "That's not uncommon. Enhanced memory can sometimes feel disorienting. We'll keep monitoring it." The memory ended as abruptly as it had started. I was back in my hotel room, breathing hard, my heart racing. I looked at the clock. Only seconds had passed, but I'd experienced several minutes in that memory. I tried to rationalize it. Stress, jet lag, my imagination, triggered by reading the documents, but I knew that doctor's face. I'd never met him, but I knew him, and I knew that office. I grabbed my laptop and searched. It took me 30 minutes, but I found him, Dr. Henrique Moura. He'd been a neurologist practicing in Petrolina from 2001 to 2009. Then he'd disappeared. Not died, disappeared. I found a missing person report filed by his family in January 2009. He'd left his house one morning and never came back. His car was found abandoned near the river. No body was ever recovered. The case was closed after 6 months. Presumed dead by drowning or foul play, I searched for any family members, found an obituary from 2018 for his widow. But his daughter, Ana Moura, had a LinkedIn profile. She lived in Recife, about 7 hours away. I sent her a message through LinkedIn, introduced myself, said I was researching the public health program from 2003-2007 and wondered if she had any information about her father's work during that period. I didn't expect a response, but 3 hours later at 2 in the morning she replied, "Don't use this platform, too public. Here's my email. We need to talk." I emailed Ana Moura immediately. She responded an hour later with a phone number and a time to call, 6 p.m. the next day. The message was brief. "What I have to tell you can't be written down. Call me. Don't tell anyone you're doing this." I spent the next day trying to distract myself. I visited my mother's grave. It was in a different cemetery, not the one in Villa Marcella. She'd been buried in the main city cemetery. The grave was simple, just her name. Her dates. No one had visited in a while. The flowers in the holder were old and dead. I replaced them with fresh ones. I stood there for a long time, trying to remember her. But the memories that came weren't the ones I expected. I remembered her cooking dinner, but the kitchen looked wrong. I remembered her reading to me as a child, but the book in my memory wasn't one we owned. I remembered her crying, sitting at the kitchen table late at night, but I'd been asleep when that happened. How could I remember it? Unless I couldn't. Unless these weren't my memories at all. At exactly 6 p.m. I called Anamura. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was cautious, strained. "Senor Santos?" "Yes, thank you for agreeing to talk to me. Before we start, I need to know. Why are you asking about this? Why now?" I told her about my mother, about the medical records, about the 16 suicides, about the memory I'd had that wasn't mine. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "My father tried to stop it. That's why they killed him." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "He didn't drown. He didn't disappear. They made him disappear because he was going to expose what they did." "Who's they?" "The government, the military, the company. All of them. They were all involved." She took a shaky breath. "I'm going to send you something. It's the only copy left. My father gave it to me 2 days before he vanished. He said if anything happened to him, I should keep it safe. I was 19. I didn't understand what it meant. I do now. Don't open it in public. Don't show it to anyone you don't completely trust. And Senor Santos, be careful. The people who did this are still out there." The call ended. 10 minutes later, I received an email with an encrypted attachment. The password came in a separate message. I downloaded the file to my laptop, made sure I was on a VPN, and opened it. It was a PDF, 147 pages. The header on every page read, "Project Mnemosyne, classified, authorized personnel only." I read the entire document that night. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The document was a clinical trial protocol and results report for something called Project Mnemosyne. The project name came from Greek mythology. Mnemosyne was the goddess of memory, mother of the 9 muses. The project had been initiated in 2001 as a joint operation between the Brazilian Army's Department of Science and Technology, a private biotech company called Biogen Solutions, and the National Intelligence Agency, ABIN. The stated objective was to develop a pharmaceutical compound that could enhance long-term memory consolidation and retrieval in military personnel. The idea was simple. Soldiers in the field need perfect recall, faces, maps, procedures, instructions. A drug that could enhance memory would be invaluable, but testing it on soldiers directly would be illegal and risky. So they needed a civilian trial first, somewhere isolated, somewhere they could control the variables. They chose Villa Marcella in Petrolina. The neighborhood had its own water treatment facility, separate from the main city system. They could introduce the compound directly into the water supply and monitor an entire population. The document outlined the timeline. Phase 1 ran from March 2003 to December 2005. The compound, designated M7, was introduced into Villa Marcella's water supply at extremely low concentrations, so low that residents wouldn't notice any taste or smell difference. Participants were told they were part of a nutrition study, receiving mineral-enhanced water to improve cognitive health in aging populations. They signed consent forms that buried the real risks in pages of legal jargon. During Phase 1, the results were exceptional. Cognitive test scores improved across the board. Memory recall increased by an average of 40%. Participants reported feeling sharper, more focused. There were minimal side effects, mild headaches in some cases, slight insomnia in others, nothing alarming. Phase 2 began in January 2006. The concentration of M7 was increased. The goal was to determine optimal dosing and long-term effects. This is when everything went wrong. The document included a section titled Unexpected Neural Phenomenon. Preliminary Observations. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood what it was saying. Starting in mid-2006, approximately 6 months into Phase 2, participants began reporting unusual experiences. They described having memories of events they didn't recognize, memories that felt real, vivid, detailed, but that they had no context for. At first, researchers thought this was a symptom of enhanced memory, bringing up deeply buried or childhood memories. But then the patterns emerged. Multiple participants reported identical memories, memories of events they hadn't all experienced. A woman remembered a car accident she'd never been in, but the details matched perfectly with a car accident another participant had actually experienced. A man remembered giving birth. He described the pain, the hospital room, the face of the baby. It matched exactly the experience of a female participant who'd given birth 2 years earlier. The researchers realized what was happening. M7 didn't just enhance memory, it created what the document called resonant neural patterns. In simple terms, the compound changed how memories were encoded in the brain. It made them stronger, more vivid, more permanent, but it also made them transferable. When people with M7 in their systems were in close proximity, their neural patterns began to sync, not in real time, but over weeks and months. Memories leaked from one person to another, not all memories, but the strong ones, the emotional ones, trauma, joy, fear, pain. These memories were like radio signals, broadcasting from one M7-enhanced brain to another. By late 2006, the effect was widespread in Villa Marcella. Participants couldn't distinguish their own memories from absorbed ones. A man remembered his wife's childhood, even though he'd met her as an adult. A child remembered the death of a neighbor's parent, as if it had happened to their own family. The psychological impact was catastrophic. Imagine not knowing which of your memories are real. Imagine carrying trauma that isn't yours, but feeling it as intensely as if it were. Imagine your entire sense of self dissolving because you can't separate your experiences from everyone else's. The document described it clinically. Subjects experiencing acute dissociative episodes, identity fragmentation, severe anxiety and paranoia resulting from inability to establish coherent personal narrative. In plain language, people were losing their minds. The program was shut down in October 2007. The water supply was flushed and returned to normal, but M7 doesn't leave the body quickly. It binds to neural tissue, it persists for years, and by then, the damage was done. The document included a list of outcomes. 47 participants had been enrolled in Phase 2. By December 2007, 16 were dead. All suicides, all with the same note. I can't tell which memories are mine anymore. Another 8 died in the following years. Heart attacks, strokes, accidents. The document noted these deaths, but didn't explicitly connect them to the program. But I could read between the lines. The stress of carrying dozens of people's memories probably destroyed their bodies as much as their minds. The remaining 23 participants were offered a settlement, a lifetime of free psychiatric care and medication to manage symptoms, plus monthly financial compensation. In exchange, they had to sign non-disclosure agreements. If they spoke about the program to anyone, they'd lose everything. The program would be erased from official records. Biogen Solutions would be dissolved. The military and intelligence agencies would deny any involvement. Dr. Henrique Moura, according to the document, had been the lead medical supervisor for the project. In late 2008, he submitted a formal complaint to the Military Ethics Board, stating that the program had violated the Nuremberg Code and Brazilian medical ethics laws. He threatened to go public. 3 weeks later, he disappeared. The document ended with a final section: secondary effects and biological transmission. This was the part that made me close my laptop and walk away. I spent 20 minutes standing on the hotel balcony, looking out at the San Francisco River, trying to process what I'd read. M7 doesn't just persist in the body, it integrates into the DNA, specifically mitochondrial DNA, which is passed from mother to child. Children born to mothers who'd been exposed to M7 showed trace amounts of the compound in their systems, not enough to cause the full effect, but enough to make them susceptible. The document called them second-generation subjects. It noted that 8 children born to Phase 2 participants between 2003 and 2008 showed anomalous neural activity patterns consistent with low-level M7 exposure. I was born in 1976, but I'd lived in Villa Marcella until 1996. I'd drunk the water there for 20 years. My mother had been exposed to M7 from 2003 to 2007. If the compound integrates into mitochondrial DNA, and if I inherited any of it from her, then I had it in my system too. Dormant, maybe. Minimal, but there. And now I was back in Petrolina, back in proximity to other people who'd been exposed. The document warned that second-generation subjects could experience activation of latent M7 effects if exposed to first-generation subjects for extended periods. That's why I was remembering things I'd never experienced. The compound in my system was resonating with the memories of people around me, people in Villa Marcella who still carried the full effects of M7. I was picking up their memories like a radio tuning into a signal. I went back inside and sat on the bed. I needed to talk to someone who'd survived, someone who could tell me what this was really like. I pulled out the list of names from my mother's medical records. 47 names, 16 dead in 2007, 8 more dead in subsequent years. That left 23. I started searching for them online, social media, public records, addresses. It took me 3 hours, but I found one. Carla Mendez. She'd been a few years older than me. I remembered her vaguely from childhood. She used to babysit kids in the neighborhood. According to Facebook, she still lived in Petrolina. Her profile was sparse. No photos of friends or family, just pictures of plants and books. Her last post was from 6 months ago. I sent her a message, told her who I was, said I needed to talk about the program. I didn't expect a response, but 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Parque da Cidade. Come alone. Parque da Cidade is a large public park near the river. I arrived early and sat on a bench near the entrance. At exactly 3 p.m., a woman approached. She was my age, maybe a bit older. Thin, grey streaks in her dark hair. She wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. She sat down next to me without introducing herself. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "You look like your mother. You remember her?" "I remember everyone from Villa Marcella. That's the problem. I remember too much." She pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were tired, ringed with dark circles. "How much do you know?" I told her about the documents, about Dr. Mora, about Project Mnemosyne. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "It's worse than what's in those documents." "How?" She looked out at the park. A few families were there, kids playing on swings, dogs running in the grass. Normal life. The document probably told you about the memory transfer, about how we can't tell which memories are ours. That's true, but it's not the worst part. She turned back to me. The worst part is that the memories don't fade. Normal memories fade over time. You forget details. Things get fuzzy. But M7 memories don't fade. They stay sharp. Forever. I remember things that happened to other people 20 years ago as clearly as if they happened to me yesterday. I carry their trauma like it's mine, and I can't let it go. Ever. Can't the medication help? The medication dulls it. It's like turning down the volume, but it's always there, always playing in the background. I take 6 different pills every day just to function, and even then, I have episodes. What kind of episodes? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Last week, I woke up at 3 in the morning crying, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. I was remembering the death of a child, a little boy, 4 years old, hit by a car in front of his house. I remember his mother's scream. I remember holding his body. I remember the funeral." She looked at me. "That wasn't my child, Raphael. That was Donna Silva's son. It happened in 2005. I was there. I saw it. And now I carry that memory like it's my own child I lost. Do you understand? I mourn a child I never had." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "There are 12 of us left in Petrolina. We meet once a month, support group sort of. We're the ones who stayed. Some of the others moved away trying to escape. It doesn't help. The memories follow you. A few tried to stop taking the medication. They thought they could handle it. They were wrong. 2 more suicides in the last 5 years. Why doesn't anyone know about this? Why hasn't this come out?" She laughed bitterly. "Come out how? We all signed agreements. If we talk publicly, we lose our medical care. We lose our compensation. And who would believe us anyway? A group of people claiming they can remember things that didn't happen to them. We'd sound insane. Besides, there's no evidence. The program was erased. The company was dissolved. The people who ran it are protected. We're just casualties. What about going to the press? International human rights organizations. Dr. Moura tried that. You know what happened to him." She put her sunglasses back on. "They made it very clear to us after he disappeared. Keep quiet or accidents happen. We have families, children, grandchildren. We keep quiet." I asked the question I'd been dreading. "My mother. How bad was it for her?" Carla's expression softened. "Your mother was one of the strongest people I've ever known. She carried more than most of us because she'd been in the program longer. She had memories from at least 30 different people. But she kept going. She kept functioning. She was determined to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "From knowing, from coming back here, from getting involved. She made us all promise that if anything happened to her, we'd never contact you. She wanted you to stay in America, stay safe, stay ignorant. She thought that was the best gift she could give you." My throat tightened. Why did she kill herself? Because she couldn't take it anymore. She carried memories of abuse, violence, loss, death. Dozens of people's worst moments, and one day she just broke. She left you a letter, you know. She wrote it the day before she died, but Tia Beatrice burned it. Your mother asked her to. She didn't want you to know the truth. We sat in silence. I watched the kids playing in the park. Normal kids, with normal memories, living normal lives. Finally, I asked, "Do you think I have it?" The compound. She looked at me carefully. "Are you remembering things that don't make sense?" "Yes." "Are they vivid, detailed, emotional?" "Yes." She nodded. "Then you have it. Not as strong as us, but enough. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I asked Carla if I could meet the others, the other survivors. She was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed. She said they met every first Saturday of the month. It was December 28th. The next meeting would be January 4th. She'd asked the group if they'd allow me to attend. I spent the next week in Petrolina, trying to process everything. I walked through Villa Marcella every day. I started recognizing the survivors. You could tell them apart if you knew what to look for. They moved differently, slower, more careful, like people carrying invisible weight. I had more memories that weren't mine. They came randomly, sometimes triggered by places or smells, sometimes for no reason at all. I remembered a wedding I'd never attended. I remembered a fight between a husband and wife, the exact words they'd said, the way dishes shattered against the wall. I remembered the taste of a specific homemade cake that I'd never eaten. Each memory was complete, vivid, real, and each one left me more disoriented. I started taking notes, trying to separate what was mine from what wasn't, but the line was blurring. On January 4th, Carla picked me up from my hotel. She drove to a small community center on the edge of Villa Marcella. We went in through a side entrance. The meeting room was plain, folding chairs arranged in a circle. 11 people were already there. I recognized a few faces from childhood, though they'd all aged. Carla introduced me. "This is Rafael Santos, Maria's son. He's been having experiences. I think he should hear from all of us." They looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and wariness. One man, probably in his 60s, spoke first. "Your mother was a good woman. She didn't deserve what happened to her. None of us did." His name was Jerome. He'd been a technician at the water treatment plant. He'd been the first to notice something was wrong with the water in 2006. Strange readings, chemical signatures that shouldn't be there. When he'd reported it, he'd been told to ignore it. When he'd insisted, he'd been fired. A woman named Luciana spoke next. She was younger, maybe 40. "I was pregnant during phase 2. My daughter was born in 2006. She's 18 now. She has it too. Not as bad as us, but she has it. She sees therapists, takes medication. She can't hold a job because she has episodes. Memories that aren't hers overwhelm her for hours at a time. They stole her future before she was even born." One by one they shared their stories, the memories they carried, the lives they'd lost, the families that had been destroyed. A man named Paolo said, "We're like a hive mind, but broken. We didn't choose this connection. It was forced on us, and we can't disconnect. I know things about these people that I should never know. Their fears, their shames, their secrets, and they know mine. There's no privacy, no boundaries. We're trapped inside each other's heads." An elderly woman, Donna Francisca, added, "The government pays for our treatment through a front program. They call it the Community Mental Health Initiative. To outsiders, it looks like a regular public health program, but it's hush money. They give us medication, therapy, a small pension, just enough to keep us alive and quiet. If we speak out, we lose everything, and without the medication we'd go insane within weeks." I asked them, "Has anyone tried to get justice, to sue, to go public?" João answered, 3 people tried. Dr. Mora in 2008, a lawyer in 2011, a journalist in 2015. Dr. Mora disappeared. The lawyer's house burned down with him inside. Electrical fire, they said. The journalist was killed in a hit-and-run accident. After that, we stopped trying. We're not heroes. We're just people trying to survive. I felt anger rising in me. So they just get away with it. The people who did this just walk free. Carla put her hand on my arm. "Rafael, listen to me. This goes all the way to the top. Military, intelligence agencies, government officials. These aren't people you fight and win. These are people who make problems disappear. We're alive because we're not problems anymore. We're contained. We're controlled. The moment we become problems again, we disappear too. Oh, what about the children, the second-generation cases? Don't they deserve to know what was done to them?" Luciana's voice was sharp. "What good would it do? Knowing doesn't fix it. Knowing just adds anger to the suffering. My daughter doesn't know the full story. She thinks she has a rare neurological condition. That's kinder than the truth." I looked around the circle. 12 faces. 12 people whose lives had been destroyed by an experiment they'd never consented to. 12 people who'd been abandoned by the very government that had poisoned them. And I realized something. I was one of them now, not fully, not yet. But I was on my way. The more time I spent in Petrolina, the stronger the memories became. The more connected I became to their shared trauma. I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Is there a cure? Any way to remove M7 from the body? They all looked at each other. Finally, Paolo said, "No. It's integrated into our neural tissue, into our DNA. It's permanent. The medication just manages symptoms, but the compound itself is there forever. And if you have it, Rafael, even a little bit, it's there forever in you too." After the meeting, Carla drove me back to my hotel. We sat in the car for a while, not speaking. Finally, I said, I need to talk to whoever's in charge of the medical program, the person who oversees the treatment. Why? Because I need to know exactly what's in my system. I need to know what I'm dealing with. She sighed. Her name is Dr. Beatrice Tavares. She's a psychiatrist. She runs the Community Mental Health Initiative. She knows everything. She's been managing us for 15 years. Will she talk to me? She doesn't have a choice. You're a second-generation case. Technically, you're entitled to evaluation and treatment under the settlement agreement. Even though you never signed anything, your mother's exposure makes you eligible. She pulled out her phone and made a call, spoke quickly in Portuguese, hung up. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Her office is in the medical center downtown. I'll text you the address. The next morning, I arrived at the medical center 15 minutes early. The building was modern, clean. It looked like any private clinic. Dr. Beatrice Tavares' office was on the 3rd floor. Her secretary checked my name on a list and told me to wait. At exactly 10 a.m. I was called in. Dr. Tavares was in her 50s, professional, composed. She gestured for me to sit. Senor Santos, I've been expecting you. Carla Mendez called to let me know you'd been having symptoms. You knew about me? We've been monitoring all potential second-generation cases since the program ended. Your mother listed you in her medical records. We've had a file on you for 17 years. That should have shocked me more than it did. But by that point, nothing surprised me anymore. What's in my system? I asked directly. She opened a folder on her desk. Based on your mother's exposure timeline and the fact that you lived in Villa Marcela during your adolescence, you likely have trace amounts of M7 in your neural tissue, much lower than first-generation subjects, probably 0.03 to 0.05% of their concentration. Why am I only having symptoms now? M7's effects are proximity-dependent. The compound creates what we call resonant fields. When multiple people with M7 are in close physical proximity for extended periods, their neural patterns begin to sync. You've been in the United States for 25 years, far from any other exposed individuals. The compound in your system has been dormant, but now you're back in Petrolina. You've spent time in Villa Marcela. You've been around first-generation subjects. That proximity is activating the compound. How long until I'm like them? Until I can't tell my memories from theirs? She was quiet for a moment. That depends on how long you stay. Every day you spend in proximity to first-generation subjects strengthens the resonance. If you left today and never came back, your symptoms would probably fade over a few months. You'd have occasional intrusive memories, but nothing debilitating. If you stay for weeks or months, the effect will become permanent. And if I stay permanently, within 6 months to a year, you'd be indistinguishable from a first-generation subject. You'd carry everyone's memories. You'd need the same medications, the same support. You'd become one of them. I sat back in my chair. So my choices are leave and forget, or stay and lose myself. Essentially, yes. What about treatment? You said I'm entitled to evaluation and treatment. She nodded. If you choose to stay, we can provide you with the same medication regimen we provide to first-generation subjects. It would be free of charge for life. You'd also receive psychiatric support and a monthly compensation payment. In exchange, you'd sign the same non-disclosure agreement they all signed. You would never speak publicly about Project Mnemosyne. You would never seek legal action. You would accept that this is your reality and move forward quietly. And if I don't sign? If I go public? Her expression didn't change. Then you receive nothing. No medication, no treatment, no compensation. And I should remind you that going public would be difficult without evidence. The program has been erased from all official records. The people in this room are the only ones who remember it existed. And we're all bound by legal agreements. You mean you're all being paid to stay silent? We're being compensated for suffering we didn't deserve. There's a difference. I stood up. I need time to think. Of course, but Senor Santos, don't take too long. Every day you stay in Petrolina without medication, the effect strengthens. If you wait too long, the choice will be made for you. I left her office and walked out into the bright Petrolina morning. The city was alive around me. Cars honking, people talking, the smell of street food, normal life. But I couldn't be part of it anymore. I stood on the sidewalk and felt memories that weren't mine flickering through my mind. A child's birthday party, an argument in a kitchen, the feeling of water from the San Francisco River on skin that wasn't mine. I pulled out my phone and booked a flight back to Philadelphia. It was leaving in 3 days. I had 3 days to decide who I wanted to be. I spent those 3 days walking. I walked through Villa Marcella every morning. I walked along the river every afternoon. I walked through the downtown at night, and everywhere I went the memories came. I remembered conversations I'd never had. I remembered places I'd never been. I remembered feelings that belonged to other people, fear, joy, grief, love, all of it bleeding into me like water into dry soil. On my last night in Petrolina, I went back to my mother's grave. I sat on the ground next to it and talked to her. I told her I understood now why she'd done what she'd done, why she'd pushed me to leave, why she'd never wanted me to come back. She'd carried the memories of 30 people. She'd carried their pain, their trauma, their loss, and she'd done it so I wouldn't have to. She'd sacrificed her mind, her peace, her life, so that I could be free. But I wasn't free, not anymore. I had a choice to make. I could leave, go back to Philadelphia, take whatever trace of M7 was in my system and bury it under distance and time. Eventually the symptoms would fade. I'd have a normal life again. I'd forget Petrolina. I'd forget the survivors. I'd forget what had been done to them. Or I could stay. I could accept the medication. I could join the support group. I could become part of the community of people who remembered too much. I'd lose myself gradually, my memories mixing with theirs until I couldn't tell where I ended and they began. But I'd also bear witness. I'd carry their stories. I'd be proof that what happened to them was real. I sat at that grave for 2 hours, and I made my decision. I left Petrolina on January 8th, 2025. I didn't go back to Dr. Tavares. I didn't sign any agreements. I got on a plane and flew home to Philadelphia. I'm writing this now, 3 weeks later. I'm back in my apartment, back at my job, back to my normal life, except it's not normal. The memories are still coming. Less frequently than they did in Petrolina, but they're still there. Yesterday, I remembered a conversation between my mother and Dr. Mura. A conversation I was never present for. She was crying. She was saying, "I don't know who I am anymore. I look in the mirror and I see myself, but the thoughts in my head belong to so many people. How do I know which ones are mine?" And Dr. Mura said, "I'm sorry, Senora Santos. I'm so sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen. We were trying to help people." And my mother said, "Then help me die, because I can't live like this." That memory ended with Dr. Mura refusing, with my mother walking out of his office, with her deciding eventually to do it herself. I don't know if that memory is real. I don't know if that conversation actually happened, but it feels real. And that's the horror of M7. Truth and false memory become indistinguishable. I'm taking notes. I'm documenting everything, the memories, the timeline, the people involved. I'm keeping copies in multiple locations, safety deposit boxes, encrypted cloud storage, with instructions to be released if anything happens to me. Will it change anything? Probably not, but it's all I can do. I can't save the people in Petrolina. I can't undo what was done to them. I can't bring back the ones who died, but I can remember. I can carry their stories. And maybe someday, when the people who did this are dead and the non-disclosure agreements have expired and the statute of limitations has run out, someone will read this and know the truth. Petrolina is a real city. Villa Marcella is a real neighborhood. The San Francisco River flows through both of them, just as it has for thousands of years. In 2007, 16 people killed themselves there. The newspaper reported it. The cemetery holds their bodies. That much is documented fact. Everything else the government denies. Biogen solutions never existed according to corporate records. Project Mnemosyne appears in no official documents. The Brazilian army and ABN have never acknowledged conducting biomedical experiments on civilian populations. Dr. Henrique Moura drowned in 2009. That's what the official report says. And 23 people in Petrolina take psychiatric medications for a condition that has no name, funded by a program that has no connection to any of this. They'll carry their secret until they die, and then it will die with them, unless I do something about it. But what can I do? I'm 3,000 miles away. I have no proof, no documents that would hold up in court, just memories. And half of those memories aren't even mine. Last night, I had another memory that I know isn't mine. I remembered my mother's last moments. I saw her sitting at her kitchen table, writing a letter to me. I felt what she felt, the exhaustion, the weight of carrying so many lives inside her head, the relief of finally making the decision to end it. I heard her thoughts as clearly as if they were my own. She thought, Raphael will be angry, he'll feel guilty, he'll think he should have known, should have helped. But this is better, he's free, he's in America, he has a future. I won't let this poison touch him, I won't let them do to him what they did to me. Then she took the pills. She lay down on her bed, and she thought about me one last time before the darkness came. She thought, I'm sorry, mio figlio. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger, but I love you, I love you, I love you. And then nothing. I woke up gasping, tears on my face. I checked the date, January 23rd, 2025. 17 years to the day since my mother died. How do I know that memory is real? How do I know my mind didn't create it? A fantasy to give me closure? I don't know. I'll never know. And that's what they've done to me. They've stolen my certainty. They've made me doubt my own mind. Every memory I have now comes with a question mark. Did that really happen? Or did I absorb it from someone else? Was that my childhood, or someone else's that I picked up in Villa Marcella? I look at photos from my past, and I can't trust them. I remember the moments captured in those images. But are they my memories? Or memories I've constructed from the photos? Or memories that leaked into me from my mother before she died? There's no way to know. That's the real horror of M7. It doesn't just steal your memories. It steals your ability to trust yourself. It steals your identity, because you are the sum of your experiences, your memories. And when you can't tell which memories are yours, what are you? Who are you? I've stopped sleeping well. Every night I'm afraid of what I'll remember in my dreams. Last week I dreamed I was someone else, a man I'd never met. I lived his entire life in that dream, his childhood in the Sertão, his marriage, his children, his work in the mines, his illness, his death. I woke up and spent 10 minutes trying to remember my own name. That's happening more often. Moments of confusion where I can't separate myself from the memories I carry. It lasts seconds, sometimes minutes. But it's getting worse. Dr. Tavares was right. The effect doesn't just fade. It's too late for that. I've crossed some invisible threshold. The M7 in my system has been activated, and now it's doing what it was designed to do. It's connecting me to everyone else who carries it. Even from 3,000 miles away, I feel them. The survivors in Petrolina, I feel their collective weight. I'm starting to understand why my mother did what she did, why Dr. Moura disappeared rather than live with what he'd created, why some people can't carry this burden. It's not just the memories themselves, it's the knowledge that you'll never be free of them, that every day for the rest of your life, you'll wake up carrying trauma that isn't yours, pain that isn't yours, loss that isn't yours, but feels exactly like yours. How do you live with that? I don't know yet. I'm trying to find out. I've started seeing a therapist. I can't tell her the truth. How do you explain M7? How do you explain memory resonance? So I tell her I'm having intrusive thoughts, vivid daydreams, symptoms of PTSD from my mother's death. She's prescribed me medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills. They don't help. They can't help, because what I have isn't depression or anxiety. It's something else entirely, something that doesn't have a name in medical textbooks, something that shouldn't exist. My kids called me yesterday. They wanted to know when I'm coming to visit. I haven't seen them since Thanksgiving. I told them soon, but I don't know if I should. What if I pass this to them? The document said M7 integrates into mitochondrial DNA. What if I've already passed it to my children? What if they're second-generation cases like me? What if right now they're walking around with dormant M7 in their systems, waiting for the right trigger to activate it? I can't tell them. What would I even say? I can't warn them. I can't protect them. All I can do is hope that distance keeps them safe, that they never come to Petrolina, that they never come into contact with anyone else who carries this compound. I'm trapped between two impossible choices. I can stay silent, let this secret die with the survivors in Petrolina, and hope my children never stumble onto the truth. Or I can speak out, risk everything to expose what was done, and possibly put my family in danger from the same people who disappeared Dr. Moura. There's no good choice. There's no justice here. There's only survival. And I'm not even sure I'm good at that anymore. This morning, I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself for a moment. The face was mine. The body was mine. But the thoughts in my head felt like they belonged to someone else. I thought about my mother sitting in her kitchen. I thought about Dr. Moura walking into the river. I thought about the 16 people who wrote identical suicide notes. And I understood. I finally understood why they all said the same thing. I can't tell which memories are mine anymore, because when you lose the ability to trust your own mind, you lose everything. You lose your past because you don't know if it's real. You lose your present because you can't focus when you're constantly bombarded with thoughts and feelings that aren't yours. You lose your future because how do you plan for tomorrow when you don't know who you'll be? Identity isn't fixed. It's not solid. It's made of memories, experiences, thoughts. And when those things become fluid, when they start bleeding into each other, mixing and merging, you start to dissolve. That's what M7 does. It dissolves you, slowly, gradually, until there's nothing left but a collection of other people's experiences, walking around in your body, pretending to be you. Is that what I'm becoming? I don't know. Some days I feel like myself. Some days I feel like a dozen different people all at once, and I don't know which feeling is the truth. Maybe they both are. Maybe that's the point. Maybe there is no truth anymore. Just perspectives, just memories, just the endless, exhausting work of trying to hold on to something that feels like you, even as it slips through your fingers like water from the San Francisco River. They say you are the sum of your memories. Your experiences shape you. Your past makes you who you are. But what are you when you can't tell which memories are yours? What are you when your experiences include things that never happened to you? What are you when your past is a mixture of your life and dozens of other lives, all tangled together until you can't find the thread that's yours alone? I'm 53 days back from Petrolina. I count the days now, like someone counting days sober, except I'm not getting better. I'm getting worse. The memories come more frequently, more vividly. Yesterday I remembered something that stopped me cold. I remembered being in Dr. Moura's car the night he disappeared. I remembered driving to the river. I remembered the decision to end it, to walk into the water, to let it take me. I remembered the coldness, the darkness, the peace. But that's impossible. Dr. Moura died alone. No one knows what happened that night. His body was never found. So how do I remember it? Did his memories somehow transfer before he died, through the water, through the air, through some mechanism we don't understand? Or is my mind creating false memories, filling in gaps with imagination? I'll never know. And that uncertainty is its own kind of torture. I've started writing letters to my children, letters I'll never send, letters explaining what happened, what M7 is, what it does, what they need to watch for in themselves. Instructions for how to get help if they start having symptoms. Contact information for Dr. Tavares in Petrolina. The letters are sealed in envelopes dated, stored in my safety deposit box. If something happens to me, my lawyer has instructions to give them to my kids. I hope they never read them. I hope I'm wrong about the genetic transmission. I hope my children are safe. But I'm preparing for the worst, because that's all I can do now. Prepare, document, and wait. Last night I called Carla in Petrolina. It was late there, but she answered. I asked her how she does it, how she lives with this every day. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't think about it as living. I think about it as witnessing. I'm a witness to lives that would otherwise be forgotten. The people whose memories I carry, they're dead now, most of them. But their memories live in me, their joys, their pains, their loves, all of it. In a strange way, I'm keeping them alive. That's how I make sense of it. That's how I survive. I asked her if she ever regrets not leaving Petrolina, not running away like I did. She said, where would I run to? The memories would follow me. And besides, this is my community. These are my people. We understand each other in ways no one else can. We share something that no one else in the world shares. It's terrible, it's traumatic, but it's also a connection, a bond. We're not alone in this. That counts for something. After we hung up, I sat in my dark apartment and thought about what she'd said, about witnessing, about connection, about not being alone. And I realized something. I made the wrong choice. I should have stayed in Petrolina. I should have accepted the medication. I should have signed the agreement, because running away didn't save me. It just isolated me. Now I'm carrying these memories alone, with no support, no community, no one who understands. I'm dissolving in slow motion, 3,000 miles from the only people who could help me make sense of it. I could go back. I could get on a plane tomorrow. I could walk into Dr. Tavares' office and say I've changed my mind. I could sign the papers, accept the medication, join the support group, but I won't, because going back would mean admitting defeat. It would mean accepting that I'm one of them now, that I'm a victim of Project Mnemosyne, just like my mother. And I'm not ready to accept that. Not yet. So I stay here, in Philadelphia, in my apartment, carrying memories that aren't mine, losing pieces of myself every day, documenting everything, writing it all down, creating a record of what happened, a testimony, evidence for someone. Someday, maybe no one will ever read this. Maybe it will stay locked in a safety deposit box until I'm dead, and my lawyer distributes my possessions, and no one cares enough to read through a dead man's ramblings. Or maybe someone will find it, someone will read it, someone will believe it, and maybe, just maybe, they'll do what I couldn't. They'll expose what happened in Petrolina. They'll demand justice for the survivors. They'll make sure something like Project Mnemosyne never happens again. That's what I tell myself on the bad days, that my suffering has meaning, that my documentation has purpose, that I'm doing something important. But on the worst days, I know the truth. The truth is simpler and sadder. I'm just a man losing his mind, writing down memories that may or may not be real, hoping that someone will care. And the hardest part is that I don't even know if this story I'm telling is mine. Maybe I'm remembering someone else's life. Maybe I'm channeling my mother's experiences, or Dr. Moura's guilt, or the collective trauma of Villa Marcella. Maybe Rafael Santos died somewhere along the way, and what's left is just an echo, a memory of a memory, a ghost haunting his own life, What's left of me, if half of what I remember never happened to me at all? That's the question I can't answer. That's the question that keeps me awake at night. That's the question that will haunt me until the day I die, or until the day I walk into the San Francisco River like Dr. Moore did, or until the day I write my own suicide note with the same words 16 people before me wrote. I can't tell which memories are mine anymore, because in the end, that's the truth Project Mnemosyne revealed. Identity is fragile, memory is unreliable, the self is not solid. We're all just collections of experiences, electrical patterns in neural tissue, stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And when those stories start to mix with other people's stories, when the boundaries dissolve, we discover something terrifying. There might not be a me at all. Just a temporary arrangement of memories, a brief coherence in the noise, a pattern that emerges and then fades. M7 didn't create that truth. It just made it visible. It forced us to confront what we've always suspected but never wanted to admit. That we're not who we think we are. That memory is fiction. That the past is constantly being rewritten. That there is no solid ground beneath our feet. We're all drowning in the river. Some of us just know it. Petrolina, Pernambuco, is a real city of 350,000 people on the banks of the San Francisco River. Between 2003 and 2007, there were no documented mass suicides in Villa Marcella. Project Mnemosyne does not exist in any official records. As of 2025, Brazil's National Intelligence Agency has never acknowledged conducting biomedical experiments on civilian populations. Dr. Henrique Moura drowned in the San Francisco River in January 2009. His body was never recovered. My mother, Maria Santos, died of heart failure in January 2008. Biogen Solutions has no record of ever existing. The 23 survivors in Petrolina received treatment for a condition that has no name. And I, Rafael Santos, am writing this from my apartment in Philadelphia, carrying memories that may or may not be mine, trying to hold on to a self that may or may not exist. This story is fiction. But the question remains, how well do you really know your own mind? How sure are you that your memories are yours? How certain are you of who you are? Think about it tonight, when you're alone in the dark. Think about every memory you have, every experience that made you who you are, and ask yourself, are you sure? Are you really sure? Because I'm not anymore. And neither were the 16 people who killed themselves in Petrolina in 2007, and neither was my mother when she took those pills. And neither is anyone who's ever looked in the mirror and wondered if the person looking back is really them. We're all just memories in the end. The question is, whose?